We have put together this program at the University of Calgary, and it's been quite beneficial. My name is Randy Mouse. I'm the Chief Housing Officer at the University of Calgary. With me, I have two colleagues, Lakshmi Sangaranarayanan, who leads the team responsible for the residential experience here at the University of Calgary, including housing and residence education. I also have TJ Fedyk with me, who is our residence occupancy wizard, who takes care of applications, assignments, purposeful living community arrangements, and lovely conversations with parents. We've also invited some additional special guests with us, and they'll give you some further insights into the program and also into some different options for how to facilitate a type of program like this. So as we begin, what I'd like everybody to think a little bit about is, if you've worked in residence, not even that long, you've probably experienced some type of random pipe bursting or some wise decision by a student to hang clothing from a sprinkler head, perhaps, leaving a pot of food on the stove and to the point where it burns or smokes out a room, or popcorn that gets microwaved for 25 minutes instead of just 5. There are any number of incidents, and I'm sure you can fill a book on your own, that impact our students in our residences. In this webinar, we're really excited to be able to share with you this successful program that insures students, but does more than that. It educates them about insurance and how to protect themselves. As a university, it helps in terms of remediation of our buildings and reconstructing some of the damage that's caused by these various incidents. And it provides other benefits to students and to our institution. So we're going to start going into that a little bit today. And so we want to talk to you a little bit about why we chose to do this program and how it came about. We also have some colleagues from the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology who are taking a different approach because how they operate their housing is a bit different than we do. And I wanted to make sure that they were able to contribute because I think it adds a lot of value to this discussion. We're also very happy to bring the broker that we work with, will be in our conversation today. He's been a great resource and a great partner in providing this program, and we'll give you kind of an insight from a broker perspective on how to create a successful program and what to look for in working with the broker. We'll talk a little bit about some of the legal considerations, as there are some things to consider, obviously the challenges and the benefits, and we'll share a little bit about how we're moving forward. We've run this program for 2 years now, and we've learned a lot in that time, and we want to share that with you, especially as we get into suggestions we have for you if you're looking to start a program like this and get it going on your campus so that your students and your campus and your facilities can benefit from it. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Lakshmi, who is essentially the key architect for this program here at the University of Calgary. And she'll go through a little bit about why we decided to start this program.
Thank you, Randy. So as you can see, why we required tenant insurance is prior to fall 2012, we really did not enforce the requirement for students to have tenant insurance. All we stated in our lease was that resident services assume no responsibility or liability for losses or damages to property. So what happened was, as you can see, the huge charges in 2010, 2011, and I'm going to actually pull the residents' claims that has been tracked since 2010. So as you can see, in 2010, 2011, the total damages that cost us around $130K, and there were about 5 incidents in 2010, 2011, and the students who were involved in this incident, they did not have insurance. And then in 2011-12, that was when the charges really went up way high, and you can see our charges due to tenant error became about $190K. So that was the year where we really had to have that conversation. What do we need to do to be more proactive in bringing the damages down, educating students, and making sure everybody is protected? So after involving conversation with risk management as well as our legal, what we did was, move back to the presentation here. Number one, we had huge charges and really didn't know how we were going to go after students, charge them back to the students. And we started getting a lot of calls from parents and from students because there were a lot of stuff. Students were upset that their property was damaged, and they asked resident services to cover those costs for replacing the property. So what we did was in fall 2012, we explicitly stated in our residence agreement that students are required to obtain liability insurance of $1 million and personal property insurance. And as you can see, in 2012, 2013, that was the first year we implemented this program, and about 90% of the students showed proof of insurance that year. And our total claims, residence insurance claims, was about $100,000. And then in 2013-14, it was $150,000. So going back to the claims, sorry, looks like I can't move it down. Okay, so as you can see, although the charges came down, but the most important thing is that in 2012-2013, of the 4 incidents that students were responsible, all 4 students had insurance. And then in 2013-14, the damages were about $150,000. 5 students were responsible, and there were 5 incidents, and only 1 student did not have insurance. So we've made a huge progress in terms of, making sure that students are insured, and we could follow through. And that's fine. We're having some difficulties with actually opening up some documents, but we will go ahead and post those documents for everybody to use. So as you've just heard a little bit about why we require the tenant insurance, I'm going to transition to TJ, who will talk a little bit about how we implemented this program and just some of the steps that we had to follow through in our process.
Thanks, Lakshmi. Please deal with me. I'm just getting over a cold. So, but how it works at the University of Calgary? So we do require all students to obtain $1 million liability insurance. They must show proof of this prior to our payment deadline, which is the end of September every year. So with this, we work with Southside Insurance, an insurance broker, for students who don't have insurance through their parents, so they can show us proof. If they're covered underneath their parents' liability through their bank or their parents, all they have to do is give us proof that shows that they are covered underneath of it. Usually with family members, as long as the student is attending a post-secondary institution, they are covered underneath their parents' insurance. We find a lot of students who are coming from overseas, international students, they are not covered underneath that. So this is where we bring in and work with Southside Insurance. So with that, they can purchase their insurance through Southside, and then Southside will supply us with the names of the students that do have insurance covered through them. So with our letter of understanding with Southside, so it's a private insurance broker. We do talk with other insurance companies as well to see what we could do and what they could do to make our insurance best for our students. And Southside was the best that came forward to us. We looked at doing an RFP process to have one specific insurance company, but to do that with the university, it takes a lot of work, and it's a little bit harder for us to be able to work with them and for us to have working with the university and with the students with that. So as of 2012 is when we first put it into place, and as you can see, we had 90% of our students do intake, and in this past year, we only had approximately 78% of the students who did intake in our insurance policy program.
So now that we've given you a little bit of an overview, what we'd like to do is turn it over to our colleagues at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. And I'm very pleased that we have with us today 2 of those colleagues. So one is Livia Colby. She is the Manager of Operations with Commercial Services. And as SAIT, she is responsible as an employee with SAIT for the stewardship of the residence contract because they use a third-party provider to actually operate the residences there. And so I'll talk about that. And we also are very fortunate to have Stephanie Woods with us, who is the general manager for that site with Canadian Campus Communities. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Livia and Stephanie.
Thanks, Randy. Hello, everyone. So as Randy was saying earlier, they have an insurance program at the U of C that they offer to each tenant. And I believe that currently they have about a 90% capture rate on that. SAIT is just going through a process of procuring a insurance provider. The way we're going to do things a little bit differently from the U of C is we are going to make this a mandatory program. So meaning that every single tenant that lives here will need to participate in the program. And the way that we're able to enforce this is with Canadian Campus Community. So Canadian Campus Community will be the policy holder, and with the help of SAIT, we will select the best insurance broker and provider and the best option for the students. If we come into a situation where there are significant amounts of damages and we need to kind of look at a tenant's higher liability insurance coverage, if SAIT were to hold the policy, and Kyle, you can certainly correct me on this, if we were to hold the policy, SAIT could not sue SAIT. So Canadian Campus Community will be the policy holder, and SAIT is just kind of in the background ensuring that correct policy is put in place. The inspiration behind this is SAIT is very risk adverse, and I think that we kind of uncovered an area that we've never really looked at until this past year. It was a banner year for tenant damage. We were well over 6 figures in tenant damage due to tenant negligence, and we really needed to kind of focus in on how we could mitigate this going forward. And as I said, SAIT is very risk adverse, so we have taken a mandatory approach with our program. Do you have any? Going back to kind of having parallel issues as the U of C, this past year we had a plethora of tenant floods, tenant fires. Again, just looking at the slide from U of C, seeing windows being opened, pipes bursting. I have to say, we have never experienced someone landing on a toilet from being intoxicated. So, wow, that one took me by surprise. But really, as you know, anything can happen, and it really puts us in a precarious position. These things happen typically on a weekend, typically when the CAs are on call, and it puts us in a position where, as you mentioned before, parents are calling, tenants who are affected by the flood that aren't particularly living in the suite have to be relocated to hotels, and SAIT is picking up the cost of all of that. So going forward, we have to ensure that every tenant is covered, and it'll certainly alleviate a lot of resources and pressure put on the CAs and Stephanie's team when these types of incidences happen.
Thanks, Livia. So one of the big differences that I found as we approach this, as we talked about at the University of Calgary in our own owned and operated, obviously if you can have a mandatorily subscribed program where everyone is subscribing as a part of their residence fees, that makes it very simple in many ways. It simplifies a lot of things. We found we were not able to do that, or for our particular situation, we were not advised by our legal counsel to do that. And so instead, we can require students to have it, but they can come from anywhere with it if they'd like. I mean, parents, they can provide, seek their own provider, whatever they like to do. We work with a broker just to make it convenient and easy. So I thought the state approach was quite different, knowing that it's more of an insuring every student as part of their applying and paying their fees for living there. And I wanted to make sure to share that with people. Because whether you are university or college operated or whether you're a third-party operated, there's certainly options for the program. Is there anything else you
Randy, Randy, I just wanted to mention one thing. We haven't actually, this is going to be our first year introducing the program, so it's going to be put in place for September. And the way it's going to be unfolded administratively is it's going to be incorporated into student leases, and it's going to be rolled into their rent. So each student will have their kind of respective area or bed covered, so to speak, through the insurance policy. There is no option to present your parents or your personal lines insurance that you have with another provider. There's absolutely no way to live under this roof without participating in the insurance program. I'd be happy to speak to this midway through the program, just to offer any feedback on how it's being received by tenants, how the program's working, and what we would have done differently if that's the case.
Great. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Now that we've kind of given an overview of a couple different programs, TJ is going to go through a bit more as far as how we actually roll this program out, how we communicate it with students and make it effective, because that's an important part of making this a successful program.
So the year that we started putting this through, in 2012, we brought it out in the middle of the summer in July to inform all the students. So we have a monthly newsletter that goes out every summer, every month throughout the summer. And so in there, one of our first newsletters, the entire newsletter is all about insurance. The purposes for the reason, stating that it is mandatory that all students are to have insurance for when they move into residence. That's one of the first ways that we did it. And then throughout the year, we do tours. Every time we do a tour of any of our residence buildings, we inform our students about the mandatory residence insurance policy. Plus, we've also talked with the campus tour groups. So they do tours for residents three times a week of the entire campus and a residence itself. And we also have informed them too, to inform all the students, and they've done very well for that. So every time they take students into residence, the campus tour groups will also talk about the insurance. In our tour rooms, we have insurance information in there, so we can handle to students about that. In our move-in guide, so a couple weeks before students move in, they will receive information about how move-in works. Also in there, we have a large information section in there about the insurance. It's on our website. Throughout this first month when students move in, we also send them multiple emails to remind them about insurance. The front desk, every time the student comes in for the first month, we ask them we check their account to see if they have insurance they show us their insurance yet. If they have not, the front desk will remind them that their insurance is also due at the end of September along with their payments. We have a summer parent and family orientation a couple days before residents move in. We also do a little section and talk to parents about the requirements of the insurance. And then after the payment deadline, we will do 2 follow-up emails with any students that haven't completed or shown us proof of their insurance yet, just to remind them that it is needed. And then throughout the year or two, we just do little information things just to remind students why they purchase insurance, or if they haven't, the reasons for it, and that it's a benefit for everybody. We also work with Southside Insurance, as we said. So they come into residence a couple times in September. They set up tables for about 5 or 6 days during the month of September for any students who don't have insurance purchased yet, to get them information to allow them to purchase insurance at that time. as well as any information packages that move into. We have it all our check-in locations and in the students' rooms when they show up as well. So we work with Kyle from Southside Insurance, and he will now go over what the insurance broker does for us and how he got involved with us.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, TJ. So basically, my job is, as the representative for Southside Insurance to the University of Calgary, is to try and achieve as close to 100% penetration of students being insured. So how that is done is basically through sessions here at the university, where I can actually get students signed up for insurance. They can pay by credit card, they can pay by cash, and it's we basically have a policy that is one standard tenant policy. It includes your $1 million liability, which is required, $30,000 in contents coverage. It includes additional living expenses as well. If the student's dorm was to be left uninhabitable, it pays that difference to the insured in the event of a loss. Basically, what we do is provide insurance. I think the things that make the partnership work between myself and what makes the partnership successful is one thing is definitely availability. I communicate primarily with Lakshmi and TJ, and any questions they have are sent to me by phone calls, emails. We just try and keep an open lines of communication. If I need information on buildings, if I need to track down a student, all of that stuff is very very open and back and forth. Patience is definitely needed. For the most part, the students who are purchasing the insurance, they don't want the insurance. They see it as $163 that they're kind of tossing away. However, when you get a call from TJ or Lakshmi or Randy saying that there's an $80,000 claim and you don't have insurance, you're going to want to spend that $163. So having that patience is fairly important. Knowledge, you do get a lot of students asking a lot of questions, so you definitely need to find a broker that knows what they're actually providing to the students, because there are some inquisitive ones out there. I think that the school having a need and being committed to that. So basically, we want to try and get 100% penetration. We're somewhere at 90%, which is it's pretty good for to have students purchase something that they necessarily don't want, and having 90% penetration, I think, shows that the program is definitely successful. Finding a broker that's a hard worker. At the end of the day, it's whether you're writing $1 million house policy or this tenant's policy. They basically take the same amount of time to actually write and get into the system. So writing over 1,000 policies in a month is a lot. We at Southside basically doubled the amount of clients in a month. So it's a lot of work. My Septembers are very very busy, but it's it is worth it. Prepare a package for the students that basically goes through all the my contact information, the policy information, what is covered, et cetera, having something like that. As far as what benefits, obviously Lakshmi showed how much losses and what was covered and what wasn't, so that's a huge benefit. Kind of a hidden benefit for the students is that it does establish property insurance history. So for every year of property insurance that you have, you basically pay less. So if you were to, be 23 and then getting out of school and buying a house, you maybe have 4 years of property insurance, and that can decrease your premiums by 15 to 20% per year on your property insurance. So in 3 or 4 years, you're actually probably paying off your tenant's policy that you used at university, and obviously you're protected. Some issues that you may find when trying to find an insurance company is insurance companies like to have the risk spread out. So not every insurance company might want to take on this program because you have 1,000 to 2,000 policies in the same area. Well, if a fire starts and one of the buildings gets burned down, obviously that's not very likely, but it could happen. You're going to want to find an insurance company that understands the risk they're taking on and is willing to write it. So we've found that with Intact right now, and they've been really, really good. So finding an insurance company that is willing to cover you is a pretty huge thing. And yeah, other than that, is there anything you guys else you wanted to cover? Okay.
So next, some legal considerations. So can we require students to have insurance? We can require students to have insurance, but one part what it comes down to is, can we evict students for not having insurance? We've come and thought about this quite a bit because we ask the students, we try and scare them by informing them that we will evict them for not having insurance, but financially we can't afford to evict students for not having insurance. If there's 10% of students that don't have insurance for us, that's about 200 students. That's a huge hit to us, and we just can't afford that. So we leave it back on the student side. We try to show them the benefits of having the insurance, the reasoning why it's best for them, best for us, and best for other students, to try and talk them into it, and then basically just leave it on their side. One student this past year didn't have insurance, and he ended up with the largest bill we've ever had from what I know of our history for an issue for something that he did, which is $80,000. Now the university is going after him to get that money paid back. So we just try and push and inform students the reasoning behind it. Another good thing about having the insurance too, the liability insurance, it comes with personal property. So that means if a student leaves a door open, this happens once in a while, and if their laptop gets stolen or something like that, they're able to go back and have the laptop covered by insurance. So that's all included with the liability and personal property as well. So having a letter of understanding and exclusive contract, that helps us out because we don't have to go through the RFP process with the university, which takes up a lot of time. We're able to work closer and feel closer and have a better understanding and working relationship with Southside Insurance, which helps with that. One of the other reasons why we haven't gone with the RFP process and forcing our students to go into a mandatory insurance, kind of like what state has done, is that we're informed, we talked with legals, that we have to give the students the option to opt in or opt out is one thing they're worried about. And so then with the number of parents that have, the number of students that would be covered underneath their parents' insurance, that would be huge administrative to be able to go through and figure out who would have to be able to opt out, given the opt-out period. So on our side, we decided it's best just to give the students the option to opt in for our administrative side to help things go more smooth with that. Some of the challenges with implementing this program, very time-consuming. So we have 2,200 students who live in residence, and each of them must show proof of residence. Proof of insurance. So our front desk staff are, for the month of September, we have students coming in that are trying to make their payments, as well as bringing in 2,200 pieces of paper to show us that they do have insurance covered. Which is one of the nice things that we have with Southside, is they send us a list of any students that they have insurance with. So that helps us. So they just send us a list. We don't have to have all the separate pieces of paper coming in. We just have one list, and we go off and check up all the students. We usually have more buy-in from first-year and second-year students because it's usually their first time living on their own, out of the house, and they're kind of a little bit easier to talk into doing something because they don't fully understand it yet. Where the upper-year students, they feel like, well, they haven't had it before. They don't understand the full reason behind it. They think they can get away without having it. So it's usually a little bit harder for us, for our third and fourth year and graduate students, from buy-in. Trying to get the students to have the insurance prior to moving in to show proof, we're finding it pretty difficult for that because usually they just want to hand in a piece of paper when they move in. This upcoming year, we are trying to increase and make it easier for students to be able to show proof prior to moving in. One of our big issues, too, is we have with exchange students. A lot of exchange students only come for one term. But when you purchase insurance, you must purchase insurance for an entire year. So what happens with that, once they are going to leave after their 4 months with us, they would have to fill out a cancellation form, send it off to Southside Insurance, and at that time Southside Insurance would cancel the policy and then send them a check for the remaining balance. So sometimes with that, the exchange students have a problem with paying for the full month, for the full year when they're only here for the 4 months. But usually while we're able to talk to them about the benefits of it, the majority of them will sign in for it. It just takes a little bit longer for that. And then one of the other big things we found out last year in 2013, the year after we implemented the program, is all the insurance policy renewal notices that we received. So every student who signed up for it got a renewal notice in the mail here at Resident Services. And so a lot of the students have moved out or moved on. So just being able to, just with all the amount of mail that we got just from that, making sure we got it to the right students, a return to sender, inform Kyle that they're no longer with us, things like that. So those are just some of the challenges that we had with bringing the program in.
Okay. As far as what we set up for this year for the renewal notices is we have the policies will just automatically lapse after the 1 year, so we won't be sending out the policy renewals. How insurance works is when the renewals are automatically sent out. When the renewal is not paid, then a registered letter of cancellation is sent out, and that's kind of mandatory insurance practices. But we have set up the policies this year with Intact where they will actually just the policies will lapse on renewal, so that the mailroom will be great this year.
Okay.
So, thank you, Kyle and TJ. I'm going to cover a little bit about the benefits of the program. And as you can see, the first thing is it is an educational process here. Students get education on real life, like need for insurance, and they know how to get it for when they leave residence, even after they have moved out of residence. Prior to implementing this program, students were not aware of this tenant insurance, and they were under the impression that resident services will be covering for damages to their personal property. So this process has been good in terms of educating students on what gets covered under tenant insurance and why they need tenant insurance. The second thing is we've been very fortunate in establishing a scholarship program with Southside Services, Insurance Services, and they have actually offered us 3 scholarships for students who are involved in residence, and Southside is working with the insurance company that they to possibly sponsor 3 more scholarships for this upcoming year. So, at the end of the day, it's just wonderful that we're able to provide a huge client base to Southside, but in return to the university, I think they're able to provide some scholarship amounts. Students can use towards the book scholarship or towards the tuition. We're able to pay them the scholarship amount. And then hotel accommodation for affected students. In October, when we had this major flood, the student caused the flood by hanging a piece of clothing on the sprinkler head, and it affected around 25 rooms. And this past year, our occupancy was 100%, and we really did not have enough spaces available. Even our emergency rooms, we couldn't provide them alternate locations, and we had to move them to the hotel. If students didn't have insurance, we're still obligated to providing them some sort of a housing option, but once again, the bill will be on resident services at the University of Calgary. But with insurance, the Southside Insurance has been able to come in and provide hotel accommodation for affected students. And then, I think we've all mentioned it several times that it protects all involved, the student, resident services, the university, and finally, it removes the burden from resident services because before we were fielding a lot of phone calls and emails and upset parents and students calling and coming to our office. But now we've established a very clear process that when an incident happens, we place the student on notice, and then it goes to risk management, and we forward the insurance information to our university risk management. The adjuster will contact the student, and we're completely removed from that process after that. So this has been really good in terms of the communication that's happening between students and the university risk management, their insurance provider, and the adjuster. So it's quite a win-win for all of us, in terms of the benefits of this program. I'm going to transition to TJ again, who's going to talk a little bit about our plan moving forward, what we have, what some of the lessons we've learned from the past 2 years, and how we're going to implement it moving forward in 2014-15.
So one of the biggest things that came up for us last year was this incident that we keep talking about, where the student hung his clothing on a sprinkler system. So our proof of insurance isn't due until payment day, which is usually the end of September. And this situation happened a week prior to that. So this year we're going to really be pushing for students to purchase their insurance prior to moving into residence. So we are actually creating an online form, insurance form, for information form, so they can go on if they need to purchase insurance. They can go on and log in and put in their information, and that email will be automatically sent over to Southside Insurance. So then from there, Kyle can send them all the information they need to fill out prior to them moving into residence. That is our biggest thing we want to do this year, is trying to get everybody signed up and to show proof of the residence prior to moving in, just because of the situation we happened last year with the $80,000 and the student didn't have insurance. So we just want to make sure that everybody is set before the deadline and before they move into residence, because the situation can happen at any time throughout the school year, from the first day up until the last day. So we want to make sure everything is covered. Just like previous years, Southside Insurance will be on site during move-in day, so they'll be here during move-in to talk with parents and to students throughout that day, as well as each week prior leading up to our deadline at the end of the month. They will be set up a table in some of our residence buildings for the students. And this year we're going to really try to push with our student leaders, our community advisors, and our resident student association to really push on to students the importance of the insurance, and to talk about situations that have happened in residence and why insurance is so important. And we're looking to work with Southside this year to do a couple info sessions, so they can come in and talk to students themselves, to do presentations on insurance, and just to help educate the students more on what insurance is, for also when they move off campus, the importance of it for having their home insurance and car insurance, and how they can get deals and all that kind of stuff when they purchase everything together, just for more information for this year. So the last 2 years have been more of a building year for us to understand it, and now this year we're trying to push as more an educational year, to help the students to understand the whole purpose of the insurance program.
Excellent. So we have, as you've seen and heard firsthand, there's a fair bit of work that goes into the program, but overall, we've seen benefits not just for us, but for our students, for our universities. So we're going to continue with the program. One of the key reasons is it's a huge learning opportunity for students. When you think about, we had a student who made a mistake and she left her window open and it was, minus 40 or whatever. And, one of those seems like a very small thing, and flooded out, and, her 3 roommates and she had to move, and the suite below them had to move. There's significant impact. And when you look at that and you think that with insurance, it's almost, for those who golf, it's almost like a mulligan, right? It's almost like your do-over. You're not getting smacked upside the head too hard as far as that lesson goes, but you can learn from it without it really impacting and having such a significant financial burden and strain on you going into the future. I mean, our students are, either our students are, or their parents varying, but we have a lot of students who are paying for their education, which is not inexpensive. So to have something like this on top can be quite burdensome. So it's a great advantage there. Also, as Lakshmi mentioned, most students don't know, especially if they've got, parents or other benefactors who are taking care of a lot of the arrangements in their university. They probably haven't thought about insurance. They maybe have heard about it, but they don't really know about it. And so this is a huge part of our fulfilling our support of our academic mission at the university, I think, in educating students and preparing them. At some point, all of our students leave residence. So we want to make sure that when they do, they're in the best possible position going out into the common market to protect themselves and their property, for themselves and for their families and going forward. So overall, I would say it's a huge win. A huge win for us, as we've said, because our students are protected. It helps cover the costs of some of the remediation and getting repairs done, even though the actual process of recovering those funds, whether it's through insurance or a student, takes time, takes a fair bit of time. And the insurance company is really good, right? I think Southside's done a good job, but they've also been motivated because just like when, as we see all of the credit card companies trying to sign up young professionals or our young college and university students, part of the reason is because they know if you can get in first, then you create a familiarity and you're more likely to be looked for when they're looking for that service. And I think it's good, too, because if they created, like Southside's one great example, and they've done a good job with it. We wouldn't have continued with them if they hadn't, but they've done a great job with it. And so in creating those relationships, it gives them a relationship for when they're done and moving on. So just some suggestions and tips, because we want to make sure you know if you want to get started. So first and foremost, it is really useful to lay out in the letter of agreement. First and foremost, explicitly stated in the contract. You may want to tweak some things depending on what it says as far as the type of insurance that's required. I'm sure for most of us that's a pretty standard statement, but I double check to see what is there and if there's any way to make that statement a little stronger. We've talked a lot about how we promote it and making sure that it's front and center of what we're doing. The letter of understanding with our insurance provider, just laying out expectations for both parties, right? What they expect from us, what we expect from them, what our students can expect. Just makes things nice and clear. We found it a lot easier to work with one broker versus trying to open it up to a variety of brokers, just for ease of management and administration of the program. Having had Kyle on site during the year, especially during that first month and then again in January when we have our new students moving in, is huge and critical, because it's one thing to put information into move-in packages, but to actually see someone there that, when students come into the desk and we're checking, our staff can be asking, have you submitted your insurance yet? And if they say no, well, great, go down the hall, there's Kyle, he's great. If you'd like to use him for your insurance, you can go ahead and do that, he'll get you signed up, and away you go. So that makes it's one step in making it easier. And the easier it is, the more likely people are to engage in it. And then finally, I would just say, as we found before we got into this, I would recommend consulting your legal. I can't speak, we can't speak to the legal implications in every province or state. So I recommend you take a look at that or contact your legal or risk management department just to make sure you're meeting whatever requirements you need to as you set it up for the university. So I'd like to thank you for listening to us for the past 50 minutes. We do have some time to take any questions. I think we have the chat box, and Brian or Eric, you can maybe speak if there are any other ways we can unmute or something like that. I'll turn it over to you to do that.
Absolutely. So let's do this. If you have any questions, please do enter them into the chat box, and that will allow us to take your questions, or for our group to take your questions one at a time. So our first question is from Bob. Are there any issues with parent coverage in shared room situations, i.e. the doubles?
Sorry. So in a room, so if we have two students sharing a room, are there any issues with insurance coverage? Like if a parent is covering insurance for the two students?
No, you would need two separate policies. The only way that it would actually work is if you had siblings living in a unit together, because otherwise you wouldn't be covered under the same policy. If that answers the question.
Yeah, so if something happened in one of those rooms, each student would engage their insurance individually.
Yeah.
The next question is from Janice. What has been your experience with students claiming laptop loss?
Laptop loss is it is covered. It all depends on how much the deductible is on the policy. For first-time insureds, through Intact at least, and that's the company that we use the insurance for. First-time insureds have a mandatory $1,000 deductible on them, and obviously, wear and tear is not covered, but that would be covered. So depending on what is stolen, it would be a covered loss.
Yeah, and I think, Janice, I don't think we've seen any inordinate amount of laptop claims or anything like that.
I had a call on an iPad getting stolen and a backpack getting stolen. But
I mean, we've had where students, when the rooms have been affected by the flood, water damage has, caused their laptops, for them to be going back and claiming. So I think I've seen at least 2 or 3 this past year where students have said that their laptops are not working, and so they've done some sort of a claim through their insurance company.
Our next question is from Alex. Would the state of residence facilities affect the insurance rate students pay, i.e. a new or an old building?
It's more based on the fire protection. So obviously, whether it's hydrant and then being a wood frame building versus a fire resistant with sprinklers is more what determines the actual rate. I know for every single building at the U of C on campus, it's the exact same rate because they're all basically the same. Yeah, they're all sprinklered, and the alarm certificate we have. So age is not a determining factor in the case of the University of Calgary.
Yeah, we have some residences that are 60 years old and others that just came online a few years ago. So
it's all postal code based. So I input the postal codes T2 and 4D5. It populates it's 345 624th Avenue, and it fires out the rate. So the age of the insured or the age of the building doesn't affect it for this particular company.
We've had some questions come in asking for reminders on both how long you require insurance. Is it 8 months? Is it a year? As well as what the average monthly premium is for the typical policy.
Well, insurance is basically sold in yearly policies. For ease of administration on my part, I collect the entire year's premium because it would just be a nightmare to set it up on monthly payments and kids coming with NSF fees, all that kind of stuff. So we just collect them monthly. The policy right now, or for last year, was $163. So that breaks down to 11 or 12 bucks a month.
And Kyle, would that policy be transferable if they move to a different
location?
It
is, absolutely, yeah. So that policy is there as long as they live in Alberta. We can put the policy. So I've had some students that were in residence for the year. Now they're moving to a house in Capitol Hill, which is across the street. We just put the new address in, and if there's any increase or decrease in the premium, we just collect that, but it's very minimal, if any at all. So it is transferable.
That wraps up our questions. Do you guys have any closing statements you'd like to make?
Sure. Just wanted to thank people once again for listening. I hope it's been of use. I know I've been chatting about this to colleagues across Canada the past year at various meetings, and I've noticed that people's eyes and ears always perk up when they hear this, because we all know the impact of especially water and flood damage in our residences. So we certainly hope it's been beneficial to you. We welcome you to contact us if there are any further questions we can answer, or if you'd like to know more about the program or how we've implemented it. We are definitely available. And thanks once again to Northwest Hoeght for coordinating the platform for us to be able to share this with you today.
And this is Kyle here. If anyone does need to contact me for information, Randy or Lakshmi or TJ all have my email address, so I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Well, on behalf of Northwest Akuo, thank you very much for providing our members with the presentation this morning. It's been great.
Fantastic. Happy to be of service.
Well, everyone enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
You too. Take care.